I have sound. So before I start, I don't have talks about startups, but I have talks about really crazy things that happen in the digital space. How many of you, as kids or as adults, have thought about immortality? You know, how cool it would be to be immortal. Can I see hands? All right. So of course, you know what the first step to immortality is, right? You have to die. And this is not something I say. You know, we can't be immortal if we don't die. And speaking of immortality, we all have this obsession with staying young, living forever, being beautiful, being perceived in a certain way, being the persona that we want to be. I'm going to talk about that, but before I want to tell you a story. And this story starts 20-something years ago on this very bit of the highway that goes from Milan, where I used to live at the time, to the Liguria coast, so Cinque Terre, that area. It's a sad story, but please don't be sad, because I am not. On this very turn of the highway, my boyfriend and I were in a car accident, in a horrific car accident, and he died on the spot. I'm here, he's gone. We were in our 20s, we were carefree, we were in university. Okay. That's him saying hi. And of course, we didn't have a will. But had he had a will when he died at 22, it would have looked something like this. Very simple, you know, a few things, and don't even think about giving that to that person because I don't like them. The fact that he didn't have a will also made it so that his parents, that had particular religious beliefs, didn't respect what they wanted him for himself after he died, which was to be cremated, his organs donated, and he was entombed in this lovely cemetery in Milan. Not what he had wanted, but there were no directives. The thing is that after the funeral, I did not go back to the cemetery, because that's not where he was. He was with me. And I had this box where the things that he had given to me, the letters we had exchanged, the presents, this was before the internet, were there. And this box, being a physical box, is a box that I can open and close. I could open and close. I can still open and close it as I want. This mere act of making a choice about wanting to revive the memory or not allowed me to move on with my life. I have a great life. I've lived everywhere. I have a family of my own. I remember him, of course I do. But it's my choice when and how I remember him. Now, we live in a different world. As I said, this was pre-internet. And our assets are no longer physical only. We have online lives, we have emails, we have different channels of communication. And with those come different problems. Now, the idea of being remembered, of being memorialized, you know, is as long as humanity is. There are the pyramids, there are, you know, when the internet came about, one of the first types of sites that were created were memorial sites like this for celebrities. But now even the people that aren't celebrities can be on the internet. We're all on the internet. It's not just for fame. And this is one of the first memorial websites that were ever created. And it talks about how the memory of you will be there for eternity. The thing is that eternity is a very, very long time. Now, clearly, celebrities have their fans that make memorial websites. We all have lost someone whose family or whose friend have decided to create some sort of digital space to pay our own homages, in addition to the physical one. But at the same time, there are other types of presents, not just the ones that are there for remembrance, there are the ones that are our lives that are online. So I'm using some wildly generic numbers, but it is estimated that right now in the world there are about 3 billion, over 3.5 billion of social media accounts, and about 1.2 billion of social media users. Assuming that these numbers are still valid, because this is like going to the car dealership and buying a car. The second the car is out of the lot, it's already old, this number too. But assuming that these are valid, each of us has 3 social media accounts on average. So this would be me, my Twitter, my Facebook, and my LinkedIn. Except, this is a bit more like it, isn't it? You know, we all have millions, we have tens, if not hundreds of social media accounts. Remember Elo? Who is on Elo? Who still goes on Elo? Nobody. But the accounts are there, right? Have you bothered to go back and close it? No, I didn't. I still have it. I still live in that space. So the thing is that we have all these lives that are parallel to our physical life, and we have all these things, photos and assets and music and videos that live in multiple lives outside of this physical world. And this is where we are. Now, when we die, in the UK there is this thing, this service that's brilliant. It's called Tell Us Once. So when someone dies, you can phone up your council or the number on this website, and they will take care of letting the council, NHS, et cetera, know that person X is dead, and so their accounts need to be closed, finalized, whatever it is that the government does. It's a thing of beauty, doesn't take care of everything, but it's really helpful when people are grieving, not having to think about all sorts of things. Now, I lived for 15 years in the States. In the States, there isn't such a thing, but the US government that now is copying the UK government in everything possible, including gov.uk, has this digital initiative, and they published this blog post where they talk about the importance of digital wills. And they're saying, if you have social media accounts, what you should do is create a will where you nominate someone to take care of your accounts after you pass. And they even make a reference to Google, because in America, Google is the only internet there is, of course. But so they talk about this inactive account manager, which is a service that Google offers, which I have enabled on my accounts, where one is able to set triggers. So if I don't use any of my various Google things that I have for a period of time that I decide, Google assumes that I may be dead. And I can set that interval to what I want. And so once that trigger is activated and once the countdown gets to 0, Google will do the things that I've decided it should do. Meaning, it will email my husband with my Orkut, who remembers Orkut, account. It will email my mom with my Gmail account, et cetera, except I set my Google account to just disappear, poof. I don't feel the need for anybody to get my things. Now, Google is a bit of an exception because they give you a modicum of control over your properties. If you read the fine print, really, they talk about some information possibly maybe staying in the logs. They don't specify what it is, but you have an option, and it's personalized to the point that you can decide who gets what of what's available on Google. Other social media are not quite like this. And so everybody, we've all read the stories of families that get into these massive and draining fights with Facebook, for instance, because someone has passed and the family wants to get access to the account and they can't do it. And on Facebook also poses some really interesting problems because dead people tend to like stuff on Facebook. So people that have passed and even if their accounts have been memorialized, occasionally will come up in a face tag or will come up as having liked some photos. And then there are even stranger things that happen. And this is one of the night Reddits. Don't ever look at night Reddits because you're going to spend months on there and never come out alive. But so this one is, and I have no idea if it's true or not, but it's this gentleman who says that his dead girlfriend was sending him messages on Facebook from her account of which the password had not been changed. It's very confusing, the story. But apparently there is an algorithm that made it so that some of the words that were private to their relationship popped up in these phantom messages that, that were popping up in his inbox. Now, Facebook is not completely, it's not completely insensitive to the pleas of grieving families and people. And so, and they've had this memorialization service active for quite a bit of time. So if someone dies and you have a death certificate, you can scan it in and send it to Facebook, and they will sort of freeze the page so that people can go and see photos, etc., but nothing happens. Recently, and this has not come in the States, it was activated last week in the US, they started enabling legacy contacts. So you can designate someone in preparation for your death as part of your digital will. You can designate someone as your executor on Facebook. So when you die, when a birth certificate, when a death certificate is produced, this person will be alerted and will get access to the account. And that's really all well and fine when you think ahead. And so this is something that my friend Emma posted. Her father passed away recently. They had had a conversation about this, and this is a message where she says, I finally found out how to get my dad's Facebook account shut down, so if you no longer see him. But she had access, she had the password, so for her it was easy. It doesn't always happen that way. And what happens to goods that we have purchased? You know, what happens to your iTunes library? What happens to movies you've bought? So this is something else that happened not too long ago. This was last year, actually a year today, last year, March 5th, where this gentleman was trying to get access to his mom's iTunes library. And what Apple had to tell them was like, actually, when you signed up for iTunes, you signed up for these terms and conditions, and these are only for the end users. So because mom hadn't left a password, all that, you know, those movies that maybe they had watched together, books, songs, they're all gone. He can have no access. And then there are all these, you know, email providers. I mean, I use Gmail for my personal email, but there is Yahoo. There's a million of them. And there are stories like this where weird things happen because the account is still open. And maybe someone had set automatic emails on a birthday, etc. Dead people actually send emails. I mean, they really don't, but the system make it look so. And for someone who is grieving, for someone who is trying to look for closure, it's terrible. That's a wound that gets reopened over and over and over again. And again, here we're talking about people that somehow are prepared. If something were to happen today, now, there is a massive earthquake, and I'm saying this because I know there are no earthquakes in Manchester, and we all die, what's going to happen to your social media accounts? This happened to a friend of mine who's in the room here today. Nothing happened, nobody died, but this accident, this is a piece of rebar that went on the M6 through his windshield, could have had a really different ending. If that happened to us today, what would happen to your online personas? And what do you want to happen? I mean, when it comes to our physical bodies, we have so many choices. We can choose to donate our organs, we can donate our body to science, we can be cremated, we can be in a coffin, we can even turn into a tree. This is an Italian startup, it's brilliant. They make these biodegradable pods with seeds, and you can be planted, and so you can become a forest of trees. You know, no more cemeteries with the crosses and stones, even though those are lovely. You can become a tree. For me, I don't want any of that. What I want is a Viking funeral pyre. I want to be gone. Burn me. Make me go away. And then, once you've burned me, there is this really cool thing which will explain the funeral pyre. You can take your ashes, send them to Switzerland, and they're going to turn them into diamonds. So I want a really big Viking ship, so it makes bulk, because I have 2 daughters, and if not, it's gonna be like 2 really tiny, tiny, tiny diamonds. But this is what I want for me. I want to be gone. I am the person, in addition to being the weird woman who talks about death and wants to be burned on a boat, I am the person that you see today. This is me. If we never meet again, this is the me you should remember. What's on my Twitter feed or on my Facebook profile is not me. This is me. This is the me you know. And so I took a look. What if our choice for the digital afterlife were, I want to be gone? You know, the moment I die, the moment there is a death certificate, I want everything that's mine online to disappear. No, I mean, there's no terrible secrets in my emails, in my Twitter DMs, on my Facebook, but there are private conversations, there are thoughts that I maybe have exchanged with my best friend. Do I necessarily want my kids to read them? No. Do I want my husband to, you know, maybe we had a discussion and I was venting to my sister, do I want my husband to read that? No. Doesn't help anybody. So I took a look, you know, I wanted to see what was out there in terms of, you know, can I tell someone, without giving away my password, can I set up something to be gone, to delete myself? And there is this thing called notarius, like a notary, sort of, which sounded really promising in the metadata that came up on Google. Really, all it does after you're dead, sends emails to your friend and says, hey, by the way, I'm dead. You know, this is what it does. So I think, then again, you know, maybe nice, but if I die suddenly, really, I am not, I won't have the time to set up personalized emails, and we all know how bulk emails are not really nice. But so I expanded my horizon a little bit because I had read that in Japan, there was this service by Yahoo. Everybody uses Yahoo for payments, for a lot of things in Japan. And so in Japan, they have this service called Yahoo Endings. And of course, I don't read Japanese. I have an Italian friend who lives in Tokyo. He's a designer. And I asked him to help me get a bit deeper than what you can read with the help of Google Translate on their website. And it turns out that even Yahoo Endings, that costs a lot of money, by the way, it doesn't really delete anything other than your Yahoo account. Thank you very much. But they'll organize a funeral, and you can choose your music, and they'll send emails to your friends saying, hey, I'm dead, only in Japanese, not in English. But it's really, really not that, that different from anything else. So I said, okay, big guns. Big guns are Google, right? Delete digital presence after death. There is nothing. There is not a thing, not a service. And it makes sense if you think about the technology, but there is nothing that allows me to say, here, I'm plugging all of my social accounts into service X. When I die, delete me. Just pull the plug, make me go away. And that's because these are, I picked some random social networks because the social networks don't really, you can probably see because of the light, they all have a different take on what they're willing to do when there is a death certificate. So across the board, none of these, Twitter, Google, Facebook, Yahoo, LinkedIn, Tumblr, and Microsoft, none of them will release passwords. None of them will open up content. Those plus and minuses, meaning maybe we will do that if there is a court order. But so only a couple will allow to deactivate account upon request of family if there is an official death certificate. This account upon request, even that is just Facebook and LinkedIn. But there is nothing that says automatically, just boom, delete me. Unless, and they don't all respect it, there is a court order. So, because I really believe that what I want is to go away and disappear, I did what every good designer would do. I said, well, let me see if I can make that happen myself, right? And initially, I figured that I could use an if this then that recipe, saying if I set a trigger, so I set up a fake Gmail account, I didn't use it for a long time, and I was trying to set up triggers based on, on the Google Inactive Account Manager to see if I could create this chain of destruction or this chain of deletion that would allow me to finally go away. The problem is that, much like those 6 networks that I showed you, if you really were to keep into account all the social networks and all the online services you may belong to, it's really, really tough. This is a website that I find fascinating. It's called justundeleteme.com. And it tells you, it rates all the subscription services, free and paid, social, non-social, that you can find on the web, and rates them in terms of ease or difficulty in closing an account, nothing else. So it's the experience of closing an account. And we go from easy, Bandcamp, to Barnes & Noble, impossible. Thankfully, there is no Barnes & Noble in the UK, but everybody in the States, up until a few years ago, had a Barnes & Noble account, in addition to an Amazon account. Impossible to delete. So even if I were successful in establishing triggers, certain services are not designed to ever end. They continue forever. So why does this matter? It matters because the people that want to be remembered, the people that want to pass on their social media accounts, the people who maybe don't care, haven't thought about it, have a choice. Not in every case, but in most cases, or in more and more cases, they have a choice. They can decide that so-and-so will get this, so-and-so will get that. Maybe my account will be frozen, maybe it will be memorialized. People that want to be remembered by a number of Twitter followers, etc. This is not real, by the way. It's an exhibit in Dublin, phenomenal. People that want to go like this, they have a choice. Me, as I said, this is my choice. I want to be gone. For people like me, there is no choice. There may be some among you who would make the same choice. There is no choice. And so the 2 things that for me are really, that make this, this topic really important are that we need to learn to design for the end. When we design experiences, when we design processes, when we design products, we talk about onboarding. We talk about how users are going to start using our services. We don't talk about, exiting. We don't talk about wanting to delete it. We don't design for that. Most websites I know that have a logged in state don't have a delete this account option. And when they have it, it's for someone who has my password. I don't want to give my passwords to anybody. And that brings me to the second point. We need to learn to design for choices. You know, this is something, it's one, like Molly was saying, it's a little bit like death and taxes, right? We're not the users that we design for, but sometimes we are. I can't design for everybody, but I'd like to design for a range of people. And so designing for choices, no matter what the choice is really, really important. So right now, if I were to die here, I won't, I promise. I could not disappear, you know? I could walk away, but you would always see a faint shadow of me somewhere on the internet, and that's it.